Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing Content Extravaganza. And if you've spent a second here, you will know that I'm on a mission to give you everything you need to be successful in your business. Providing, of course, that what you need to be successful in your business is to know more about and be motivated to implement your sales and marketing more effectively, which is, of course, what you need if you're going to be successful in your business. So I'm here giving you everything I know about sales and marketing. We are bringing you the marketing news. We are reviewing the very best and the very worst of marketing content on the internet. And whenever I possibly can, I am dragging in anyone I can find with experience to share with you to make your sales and marketing experience in your business more effective, more successful, so you can have a better business, go on nicer holidays, drive a nicer car, have a nicer retirement, all of those good things that you deserve. So today is Talk Marketing. So we have a guest for you. And today's guest has business development experience going back to 2004. He has been running his business, the Telephone Assassin Ltd, since 2012. He is author of the book, The Telephone Assassin. He is a professional speaker and former president of the Professional Speaking Association in London. What you may not know about him is that he once lost his cat only for it to return 12 years later. He was introduced to us by the brilliant Nathan Lyttleton, who tells us that he supports people to use the phone to develop business in the right way. Today's guest is the Telephone Assassin. Today's guest is Anthony Stears. Hello, Mr. Stears.
Hello. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction.
You are very welcome. I'm actually starting to take a little bit of pleasure in that, making those introductions.
Yeah. Where did you get the cat story from? Hardly anybody knows about that.
Well, because what we have to do is we have to find images for you to break up the content on the pages, put in the thumbnail, etc., etc. And like the 15th image of you is you and this cat, and I take it your wife. So that's how I know about it. But
yeah, I'll be honest with you, I was shocked when one of my friends went, "You're in the national newspaper." And I went, "Brilliant, what's happened?" And it was actually a story that came from my vet's newsletter that made it out to the national papers. So, yeah.
The thing that struck me about the cat is that it looked like a lot of cats. You know, it looked like most cats.
It's just a black cat.
It was just a black cat, so that could have been any black cat. And 12 is long for a cat to live. How old was it when you lost it?
So she was about 6, I think, and then she went missing for 12 years. So she was 18 when she. It was disbelief when my wife got the phone call to say, "Come and collect Molly," and Carly was like, "Who?" And they were like, "Your cat." She was like, "I think you must be mistaken." And it turns out they'd done the microchip, and she went missing many years ago. We did posters for quite a few years, but there were lots of sightings of black cats, as you pointed out. There's quite a few of them. Yes. But she never came back. But after that she got to see out her remaining time with us, which was lovely.
Wow.
And I got back. I was off doing some training, and I got back, and my wife just went, "There's somebody upstairs waiting for you." And I just didn't really know. She went, and it was really weird, one of them really weird moments going,
that's a bit creepy.
Yeah, who's in the back bedroom, and why are they waiting for me? So it was that my wife set up. This is freaky, but yes, I think we are digressing here, and we should.
We are digressing, but I think, and it's important that we establish some rapport with our audience so that they know that you're a cat owner, that you lost your cat, that your cat came back. I was going to accuse you of replacing the cat with another black cat, but I hadn't thought about the microchip. So you definitely know.
It was definitely her.
That is astounding. I didn't know that cats could live for 18 years. I'll be very honest with you.
No, I have to be honest with you. We've actually got 2 more cats already. We had another cat at the same time as we had that cat. So yes, I love animals. I'm more of a dog person, but my wife's a cat person, and
okay,
they're a little bit easier.
It's a shame with the microchip you couldn't have tracked where it had been. That might have been the most interesting thing.
I know.
I've got no idea.
surely they're going to put GPS. Well, we know that she was found less than a couple of miles from my in-laws' house, my wife's parents' house, who were looking after them when we went off travelling. And yeah, she was only found a couple of miles up the road near Royal Holloway College, University.
Okay.
The one that looks like Hogwarts. It's beautiful.
Yes. Okay, cool. But we are digressing. But now everyone knows you're human. Everyone knows you're a dog lover. Like, they might feel like they're interested in you now, Anthony. That's why we do this bit. Because you have to establish rapport, don't you? You are the conversation strategist. You know that.
Yes, absolutely. Rapport certainly helps to lubricate the conversation and get people to open up.
It absolutely does. Okay, cool. I feel like you are perfectly now open and lubricated. That's how I'm feeling about you. Good. Okay, I don't need that paper anymore. Okay, cool. So let's bring some order to this. We're here to talk about sales and marketing type things. Your specialist subject is you are a conversation strategist, which I absolutely love. So we're going to talk about that. There are only 5 questions. Question number 1, how are you qualified to talk to us about telephone strategy, telephone conversation strategy? Question number 2, who do you work with? How do you add value to their lives? Question number 3, what's your recommendation for people who want to get better at conversation strategy? Question number 4, what should people read? Question number 5, who can you throw under the bus who might endure or maybe actually enjoy to have a conversation like this with me?
So, awesome. I can tick all of those off, don't you worry.
Excellent, cool. Okay, good. So question number 1, how are you qualified? Well, let's start with what on earth is conversation strategy, and then you can tell us how you are qualified to talk to us about it.
Well, at school, I was a bit of a smart aleck and always had something funny to say. And I remember one of my teachers telling me, that's all very good, but it's hard to get a job finding the smart thing to say. And actually, I've managed to prove them wrong. Really, a conversational strategist is kind of, it describes what I do, but it will usually get presented and sort of packaged up as sales training or customer service training. But my friends think that the Telephone Assassin sounds kind of cool and ask me what it is I actually do. And I tend to play it down a little bit and say I just teach people good manners and advanced common sense. Just show them how to be polite enough that people want to talk to them, but understand the emotional journey you have to take them through before they're going to do something as a result of speaking to you, basically.
Good. Right. You've touched on a couple of my issues already, man. What you're going to come to learn about me is that I'm just riddled with issues. I've got this thing about, like, I was the Larry kid at school. And basically what they should have done is taken me aside and said, look, mine, this is going to be useful for you in your sales and marketing career. Do you know what I mean? You're going to be the person who's happy to stand up in front of everyone and talk. You're going to be the one who's not going to roll over necessarily if people don't quite agree with you. You know, this is going to be really useful for you. What they actually did is told me I was a dickhead and sent me out of the classroom all the time, you know? So I feel like there's a missed opportunity there because I have Googled it before. A significant percentage of people go into sales careers or customer service careers or marketing careers, but nobody, I think, is intending to do that because you all go through school and they tell you you're going to work in a factory or something, but there is a significant percentage of the working population who are doing customer-facing engagement type jobs, and I think it's a missed opportunity of the education system that they don't just go, look, 10% of the kids are dickheads. They are disrupting everything. You know what I mean? But after we've done with them, there is going to be a use for them in the wider world. What do you think to that little theory?
Absolutely. I can't remember. It's a guy called Marcus Couchy, and he gave me a statistic about the number of salespeople who are dyslexic, which I am. So I was extra proud when I wrote my book. But I was a slow reader. Yeah, like I say, a bit more of a class clown, and I think education used to be more about passing exams and tests, whereas I actually reached out to my old senior school, and since I've left, they actually work with some local businesses now, and the sixth form students and the year 11s get to do some interview practice. And it was just quite lovely to find out that actually they are teaching them some skills that are useful in helping them take on their next steps in the big bad world. rather than just teaching them the answers to some questions so that they could pass a test. But I definitely feel that there's yeah, it's interesting. You don't see many kids going, "Oh, when I grow up, I want to be a salesperson."
No.
And particularly because although my training works both face to face and on the phone, being the telephone assassin, I do a lot of stuff with people in telesales departments, and telesales used to be seen as a stepping stone into proper sales.
Yes.
Right? You started off making phone calls, trying to set up meetings, and if you were good at it, you'd eventually get taken out on a few of those meetings. And then if you enjoyed it, you then started doing those meetings, and you would then work your way up to look after accounts. And telesales was seen as a kind of starting point of a career,
Yes.
whereas I know some people who've made a very good living out of being on the telephone, and they perhaps technically it'll be classed as telesales, but that's not really the role that they actually would see themselves doing. It's just sales, remote sales, as opposed to telesales, which seems to have some negative kind of association to it.
Yes. Okay. Now you've touched on another one of my issues, but it's all good. We'll get through them. I'm going to start writing stuff down because I don't do this.
It's like a therapy session, this, isn't it?
You're bang on, man. That's exactly what it is. You're here to counsel me for the next hour and a half. That's exactly what's going on. Right. So, but this is twice. Like, 'cause I did one of these yesterday as well, and she also busted me. So the thing is, you're teaching people good manners, and what was the other thing you said?
Advanced common sense.
Advanced common sense. I love that.
Yeah. If you don't say advanced, people get offended.
Have to be careful about offending people in 2022, man. You really do. Okay,
Absolutely.
good. So what's the thing about that? The thing about that is you're 100% right. So because I also cut my teeth, almost exactly as you describe, on the phone, we weren't doing telesales. I don't think anyone's doing telesales. People are doing telemarketing, and then very occasionally the whole thing works and they get a sale, is what I think goes on. Because that is the least effective. I need to be careful talking to you maybe about like that. But what I think is, let's not worry about what I think. Let's worry about the thing. Because I started on the phone, what I was doing essentially was getting myself in and out of conversations all day. So I was learning those basic manners and that basic common sense. Do you know what I mean? So that was useful for me when I was doing email marketing and people didn't like the emails. I knew how to placate them so that they didn't complain about us and get us fined by the regulator. Do you know what I mean? I worry that that's not available to people so much anymore, but it sounds to me like you're busy. It sounds to me like there is still a significant number of people working on the phone.
Absolutely. I think the point you were getting close to before is that with email marketing, you can send 1,000 emails with just a few clicks.
Yes.
Okay. Whereas really, if you were phoning somebody, yes, you can do group calls, but technically you can only phone one person at a time. So from a strike rate, you need a much stronger strike rate during doing that one-to-one than you do getting a percentage out of a email campaign.
Yes.
So I tend to think that so I love working with Nathan. Obviously, you had him on not that long ago, and he does a lot of the email stuff that stays in touch with people, but he also does the lead magnet side of things where you get people to go, oh, that's interesting. I want your ebook. I'll give you my details. So they start to kind of engage with you. If you can generate people who inquire or are interested in your services, the best thing you can do is go and have a chat with them.
Yes.
Because when you send an email, when you send an email, it gets it off your desk. It usually doesn't complete the task. You're either trying to transfer some information to somebody or you're asking them a question because you want some answers. And annoyingly, that's where a lot of people in sales, they give up with their follow-ups. And when you say, oh, how are you getting on with that big one you were chasing? They go, oh, yeah, I've emailed them. And all you've really done is you've got it off your desk. You haven't actually you haven't followed them up because they haven't responded yet. And I try and get people to think about you should use email to create a paper trail of the conversations you've already had rather than trying to have a conversation through an email. Don't get me wrong, email marketing really works. You can share messages, you can share success stories, you can share tips. That stuff is really useful. But if I email somebody and ask them 3 questions, they usually make me wait 2 days before they respond, and then they only answer 2 of the 3 questions, so I still need to phone them and find out the third answer anyway. It just seems to be a very slow way of communicating. And if you can have a conversation, you can move something forwards.
Yes.
And that's where I think it has the advantage.
Okay, 100%. And I would go stronger than that. I would go to where it felt to me like you went to in one of the presentations that I watched, where you're basically saying that email is kind of shirking the issue. It's like, you see, you not say that? I'm saying that. I'm 100% saying that.
Yeah. Well, it just feels like a really easy get out of jail free card for a salesperson. When the manager says, "What's happened with those follow-ups?" and you go, "Yeah, I've emailed them all this morning." Well, okay, so nothing's happened then, basically.
100%.
You've done a token bit of effort that creates a paper trail to prove you've made some effort, but nothing's actually happened.
Good. So, so basically, I mean, that's what I would say if I was a sales manager. Oh, I was a terrible sales manager, really. But, that would be my next question is, okay, so what have you learned now? What more do you know now than you knew the last time we spoke? And the answer is absolutely nothing. Okay, good. The issues are coming really thick and fast today. The issues are strong with you, man. Okay, good. So I would say that the thing about which way do we want to go? Let's go in the order that you said the things. Sales career. I think sales is a maligned career. I've never met anybody who said, I want a career in sales. I don't know if that's changed, but my sales career was amazing. I was at one point in my life, I was based in South Africa. I was a salesperson. It was my job to take my clients out for golf. So I was on the golf course once a week. I had a client who liked to play squash. So I was going and playing squash in the National Bank. They had a squash court in the basement. I took them to World Cup finals, Cricket World Cup finals. I would take them out for nights. We went away for weekends on fishing trips with their teams. Like sales is probably, before I did that, I spent some time cleaning drains. So, there's much worse jobs. Do you know what I mean? Like when I'm sitting at the Cricket World Cup and I'm smashed, and my client's smashed, and he thinks I'm great, I'm thinking I could be in a drain now. Do you know what I mean? So it seems to me that sales is so badly maligned, so unnecessarily maligned. Do you know what I mean? I
think that the hospitality and the entertainment side of sales isn't as strong as it used to be back in the day. There was a lot more of the going to get drunk with your clients and taking them to do stuff. But technically all you were really trying to do is maintain a good relationship with them so that they didn't go anywhere else and that they talk to you about things that you might be able to help them with in the future.
100%.
Right?
See, this goes to my definition of sales. Sales is making friends with people. Like whatever level of sales you're doing, you want to make friends with people. You want to make it easy for them to buy. You want to make sure they get the right thing. You want to make sure they come back to you. Like there's nothing unpleasant about sales. The most unpleasant part is like if you're cold calling. But for me, that's not even unpleasant because I'm still making friends. Do you know what I mean? Like my mission was if I speak to somebody on the phone and they say, I don't fancy it, thanks, Martin. That's cool. I would tell them, you're going to hear from me again in 3 months because there's only so many people I can call. Do you know what I mean? And my mission was to make sure that when they answered the phone to me, they recognized me from my voice and they're like, Martin, how you doing? Do you know what I mean? That was my mission. So all the way I saw it was I'm just rattling cages. Do you know what I mean? And seeing what falls out in the most gentle, friendly, polite way.
Well, I think if you do it in a really polite way, what you end up doing is cultivating relationships.
Yes.
They take a bit of time to build, and you rely on the timing of it. But it's just a lovely way of staying on somebody's radar. And so the analogy I often give when prospecting is it should feel like you're dropping off a pizza menu. Okay, a lot of us get takeaway menus put through our letterboxes. I know they've got the apps and stuff, but they still come through the letterbox. But when I'm on stage, I often say to people, so do you get these menus come through? And everybody's like, yes. And I go, okay. And who's ever had them knock on your door and try and take the order? And then there's usually a bit of a ripple of laughter and a bit of a no, because that would be rude. And it's absolutely right. because it is rude and intrusive. Could you imagine if you got a knock at the door and they just went, "Oh, hi there, Domino's Pizza, can I take your order?" You'd be like, "Hang on a second, I didn't realise I was sat at a table." No, sod off, right?
Yeah.
That's just rude. What they really do is they just remind you that they're still there, because they know that their competitors, the other restaurants, are likely doing the same. And quite a lot of them will have a few special deals and promotions as well, usually on that same menu, that has an expiry date, and that's supposed to create urgency, basically. Or
Yes.
they try and get smart, and I'm sorry to use Domino's as the example here, but Tuesday was the quietest day of their week. So they invented 2 for Tuesday.
Yep.
Right? So they need to tell people about that. So I always say to people, when you're prospecting, it should feel like you're dropping off a pizza menu. And what I mean by that is it shouldn't be you dropping off a list of your services and your prices. It should be you creating awareness for what it is you do.
100%.
So the example I always give is the way I would do it is if I was introducing myself to another podcast host, for example. If you introduced me and said, "I know this other guy, he does a really good, you should talk to him as well," I would kind of reach out and say, "Hey, my name's Anthony Stears. I'm a sort of professional speaker. I'm an author, and I've featured on lots of different podcasts. I wanted to introduce myself, but I'm assuming you're probably not looking at booking guests right now." So basically introduce myself, but lead with the most common objection, which is bad timing. And that's what always happens in prospecting. And if you assume now is a bad time, then quite often they'll confirm that you're correct, and then they'll justify it. So most people kind of go, "Oh, well, actually, yeah, you're right, Anthony. I'm not looking for guests at the moment. I tend to book them every 6 months, and I'm okay till the end of the year." Or they might do, "Oh, no, we're not looking for a speaker at the moment because we're not planning the event until such and such a point." Or if I'm trying to pitch training, I'll say, "Look, I do a very specialist type of training that stops people from hiding behind their emails, but I'm assuming you're not looking for training right now." Most people will go, "You're right, Anthony, we're not looking at training right now because we have a training program that's always running until the end of the year. We don't get a budget until a certain point." So by leading with the most common objection, which is usually bad timing, you put that on the table, which makes it safe to talk about. And it means you don't have to do objection handling, which is technically arguing.
Technically arguing and hiding behind the emails. That I think that's what's going on. So we don't have to say that people are shirking. They're hiding behind their emails. That's what they're doing. Okay, cool. Yeah. Now, the only thing I would say is that the most successful pizza store marketing company would employ someone with the cojones. I don't know why I'm saying that in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. The testicles to knock on the door and say, "Look, I'm sure you get a lot of these through your door, but we're on a mission to make the best pizzas in town, and we've got this fantastic offer on, and people are raving about it, so I didn't want it to get lost in all the stuff. So I'm still just dropping off the menu, but I'm just doing a better job of landing that awareness." Do you know what I mean? And what I'm not doing is what you're saying, and you have to order a pizza right now, or you're a knob, which is what they say.
It's trying to do the assumptive close type of thing.
Or just expecting.
But on the other side of the coin, pre-COVID, if you went out on a Friday and Saturday night and did knock on doors on houses blaring music, i.e. people having a bit of a party, I bet you'd actually sell some pizzas.
I bet you actually would, I bet you actually would.
If a Domino's van pulled up and went, "God, I can hear the music. I've just dropped a pizza up there, but that is back there and a party there. Let me just go and knock and say, 'Hey there, I've just delivered pizzas to one of your neighbours. If you want to place an order, let me know. I'll get them back to the kitchen and I'll see you back in half an hour.'"
Yes, I bet you would. The issue,
like you say, it's finding those who are willing to do it.
Yes, and there's not many of those people because they've all been told that sales is awful, and they've all been told that it's rude and all of that other stuff. What was the point I wanted to make? The point I wanted to make was it's impersonal. So can I tell you about an interaction I've had in the last half an hour?
Yeah.
So email, LinkedIn, chat, all of it is impersonal. It's like you're not dealing with a person. So then what happens is that I think the manners fall, and because you don't know if you're talking to a bot or not. Do you know what I mean? So certainly when I'm forced to respond to a chat bot because my bank don't want me to have my money, And now I have to go to a chat bot and wait for 2 hours for them to come back. And do you know what I mean? Like, I'm rude. I'll admit to it. I'm rude. So here's what happens. When you get to my age, they don't even know, or they do know what I look like. They can probably see from my profile picture. I come from a long line of fat-faced Irish farmers. But what happens is personal trainers target you. And what they do is they send you a connection request on LinkedIn. And then the next thing is, I hope you're well. I work with guys like you, guys I work with. And then the next thing is, I've got a free thing. Do you want the free thing? So this went on today. The guy requested a connection a couple of days ago. I'm an idiot because I know this is the deal, but I still accepted. And then I got the next thing and the next thing. And then today I get the next message and it's like, do you want this free thing? And I'm like, no, thanks. And please don't start spamming me. And he came back and he said, it's not spam. I'm delivering messages to my target market. Well, actually what spam is if it's unsolicited and the person's telling you they don't like it, it's spam. Like spam is in the eye of the beholder. So he then went to my profile headline, which says expert at educating and motivating business owners and managers. And he copied that in and he's like, oh, you really motivated me. And it's like, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I didn't say, don't spam me, you arsehole. I said, please don't spam me. Do you know what I mean?
That's when you kind of go, well, the irony is I was trying to do that and you've totally ignored it. Your ignorance and persistence.
So then I said, okay, then I've cancelled the connection. And he's like, oh, you beat me to it. But it's just like, now he's probably a nice guy. He's probably the right guy. But he's doing it in such an impersonal way. And he's like, now I'm talking to you about him behaving like a dick. I don't think he's a dick. Yeah. He's behaving like a dick. Don't do it like that. Like, don't assume that you're going to get a sale when you haven't really done your marketing. Your marketing is about finding people who want to buy it. I think we're saying the same thing.
Absolutely. And I think it's part of the reason why people sort of say, oh, cold calling is dead, and what they're trying to say something slightly different. But the reason why doing cold calling really badly is such a risky thing is if you upset somebody like you who has a big following online, and now I form this really negative association with my company or what I do or me personally, you could go and post about this and basically you're going to end up naming and shaming me. And it turns out for other companies that do telemarketing really badly and they use rude people, is their marketing department then have to start creating content that buries the bad reviews and comments and posts about them. And they end up in defense strategy trying to create loads of content to swamp the bad stuff that's being picked up. If you upset the wrong person along the way, they could make your life absolute hell and turn opinion on your brand totally on its head. So it's a really risky strategy. And when people do it, particularly through chat messages where it feels even less personal, it baffles me that people think that that's okay. But I can kind of get the strategy that they're trying to do. So I often talk about, obviously, you get people to like you by being nice, and then you get them to respect you by using some case studies. But then you create urgency by offering a test drive, and that's the freebie that they're trying to warm you up with. Yes. They just need to learn that if you didn't enjoy the test drive, or you go, I did enjoy the test drive, but I'm never going to buy the car, they might then go, oh, okay, we won't bother you anymore. Or, like you said to that person a while back, okay, we might touch base in 3 months to see if you've changed your mind, but otherwise, crack on with your life.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, I don't want to get too much into this. It's the impersonality of it. So this brings me to the third thing, and there's four things. The third thing is the benefit of actually talking to people, which is that you learn something when you actually talk to people. So I started working for selling advertising for a company called Miller Freeman. So this was like one of these big media sales operations. It was business to business. They had like 60, 70 titles. So I started off selling a printing title. And you know what? After 3 or 4 months of speaking to people in the printing industry, I became quite expert at printing type stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then what happened is, this was a joy. I got promoted to work on farming news. And this was at exactly the time of the BSE crisis. So basically, it wasn't so much telemarketing or telesales as it was counselling farmers who were killing their cows every day. It was awful. But then, thankfully, I got promoted to an engineering title, and then I spent 6-8 months talking to people in engineering recruitment, and I became quite expert at that. So the point of marketing, I think, not just telemarketing, but telemarketing is probably the most effective way. The point of marketing is to learn about your market and what it is that they want to buy, so you can produce the right thing and develop the right message and land the right message on the right people. This is what I think. I don't know what the question was.
Well, on that point that you've said, you're absolutely right. If you talk to or talk with somebody, you will learn something. The problem that you tend to find in sales is they're talking at somebody.
100%.
They're not really interested in what you've got to say. They just need to get their pitch off their chest in the hope that you might say yes, and then if you do, they can ring the bell and they've hit their target for the day.
Yes. And this is where the whole thing for me is misaligned, because everyone I've ever worked with in sales is just desperate to get hold of someone and desperate to sell them something. Like, my approach was entirely different. I had a brilliant sales manager. My first sales manager was amazing. And he was like, well, because I went to him after 3 days and went, I obviously can't do this. And he's like, just phone people and make friends. You know what I mean? It's not hard. And then after 2 weeks, it's like, well, I'm making lots of friends. I can't get him to buy anything. And he's like, well, see if you can sell them a media pack, because they're free. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it was like that. It's like, do the marketing type stuff. The point of that was, what was the point of that? Is that people don't understand, because they call them telesales. They don't understand what they're actually doing is marketing. And actually what they're doing is finding people who actually have an interest in and will benefit from buying the thing. Because then what you've got is a happy customer. And when you've got a happy customer, they'll like introduce you to other people who also have an interest in and might buy the thing because their mate is telling them they should. But do you know what I mean? That's the way it works. But it feels to me, and this is the danger of your assassin thing, because this leans into this horribly. But it feels to me like people are desperate. I've got to get someone on the phone. And when I get them on the phone, I've got to sell to them. And that's stupid.
There's definitely a mentality. There's a panic of, like, say, getting people on the phone, which got made even harder during lockdown and what have you, and people working from home. And when you're desperate and behind target, when somebody does finally answer the phone, you don't want to let them go. Yes. So you then tend to come across a little bit strong and overbearing, and then you try and troubleshoot any objections. So if they push back and go, well, I'm really not interested in this, they go, well, how do you know? Let me tell you a little bit more about it. And they're trying to kind of keep it going rather than taking that approach of cultivating a relationship. And that's where, if you're prospecting, I often get people to map the journey that you would take a prospect through before they become a client. Okay. Good. And it's quite often it takes it takes at least a couple of conversations before you can convince somebody to actually do something. Otherwise, you're a complete stranger, right? Yes. They've seen all of most people have had a really bad experience with somebody selling down the phone to them and then buying something that they didn't want, or being conned or something along those lines. And that's where I think a lot of salespeople are just impatient. And when you can get them to slow down and go, on that first call, I want you to make friends with them, okay? And as part of making friends, so getting them to like you, I'd like you to start seeing if you can get them to trust us a little bit. Not to do anything yet, you just want them to trust us. So what I would then set you as a bit of a goal to do based on what I do is say, well, as well as having a bit of a chat with them, can you drop off a case study of a company in their industry that we've worked with who thinks we're amazing, just so that they can see what our customers say about us? If they ask any more questions, brilliant. But if not, all we want to do is let them know that if they are looking for this service in the future, people in their industry use us for a very particular reason, and hear it from the horse's mouth. Yeah?
Yes.
All of a sudden, I've turned what felt like a stressful sales role where there's the pressure to get some sales to you going to drop off some pizza menus. Can you go and give out them free media packs?
Yes.
Yeah?
100%.
Because you give out 10 media packs, and the harder you work, the luckier you seem to get. The 10th one goes, actually, we're looking at this at the moment, or we're going to be looking at this next month. Maybe we should have another chat. Because everybody else is being cultivated as well, when you're ready to talk, we want to be the person that you talk to.
Yes.
And most salespeople are like, yeah, but it's really important, and I want you to talk about it now. And they don't understand that you've butted into somebody's day, and what you want to talk about is not at the top of their priority list. So you have to respect it.
100%.
But that's where you can then use things like social media in the modern day, where I might reach out and connect with you on LinkedIn and say, hey, just wanted to connect because I'm going to reach out. You might be interested to look at a couple of my recommendations, people in your industry who I know you're connected with, and at some point would love to have a chat and see if there's a test drive I could offer you that might be of interest for you to have a look at what I do. Right, so I 100%. Might reach out, but it's not a, hi there, can I take your order? It's when you're ready, let me know. And I deliberately use the language of a test drive because it has that kind of universal try before you buy kind of feeling to it. And people go, well, like you say, the message that you got from the fitness guy saying, well, why don't you try this? You go, well, why not?
Yeah, 100%.
Better to do, or actually, yeah, I'm trying to achieve that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to want to buy the car at the end of it. And that's what salespeople need to appreciate.
Yes, they do. They just need to appreciate that. The thing is, when they take the media pack, then I'm like, and I'm going to want to know what you think of it. So I'm going to give you a shout. In those days, we were putting them in the post. So it's like, okay, I'm going to give you a shout in 3-4 days' time. You can let me know what you think of it. But then by the time you phone them back, that's not cold call anymore. Now you're friends. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're not cold calling. So it was beautiful the way we were working then because, I mean, it was just beautiful. Like I say, the sales manager was amazing and he didn't put any pressure on anyone. He's like, this is really cool. We're going to pull it together one way or the other. Do you know what I mean? We're putting out a magazine every week. You know, it's got to have ads in it. What was the point of that? The point of that is, like you say, it's trust. Like I'm going to do something. And then when I do that thing and I follow up, you're going to know that I do stuff that I say I'm going to do. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's like how you actually get trust.
Well, trust is earned. And if you can show that, well, I said I'd call you at 11 o'clock next week on Friday. You want to phone at 11 o'clock on Friday next week and go, hey, hopefully now's still a good time, but I blocked out half an hour. If you've had a chance to look at what we've sent you, would love to see what questions you've got or which bits most interested you.
Yes. And I don't know if it's the case, but there were people who were doing that in the teams that I was working in, and then they wouldn't make the call at the right time. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why would you, like, what are they doing? They're doing other cold calls because they don't want to do this warm call. You know, it is the weirdest thing. It feels to me like, I
was just about to say there's a chap who always says, in sales, you don't want to F up. And it's kind of, you don't want to follow up because if you mess up the follow up, it's no longer in your pipeline.
Yes.
So there's then a panic that if I do the follow up and it goes wrong, then all of a sudden I'm left with nothing, which then seems bad because something's fallen out of my pipeline. Rather than thinking, I'd rather follow up and know it's a no now, so I don't waste time and effort and energy messaging them and trying to do stuff. If I can find out now that nothing's happening this year, in which case put them on the back burner. We'll go after them again next year. It's all just about kind of timing.
Yes. And that's the other thing that goes on. Like if we're talking about sales, people think that if they haven't said no yet, there's still a chance it could happen. There's still a chance. Do you know what I mean? There's still some. But what they don't realize is that if you don't give people the opportunity to say no, they're not going to say no. So are you a football fan?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. Well, cool. I'm not much of a football fan anymore, but I used to be a football fan. I supported Manchester United, especially when Roy Keane was the captain of Manchester United. Because Roy Keane...
Back then I was into football.
Yeah. Roy Keane, nobody ever questioned his commitment. Nobody ever questioned if he's turning up for the game. Do you know what I mean? And that, for me, seems to be I don't want to talk about secrets. There being secrets in marketing. The secret is do some marketing, I think. But the secret sauce to being successful in sales is to put yourself in the game. Do you know what I mean? It really is. Because you could have an entire sales career. Lots of people I know are having an entire sales career where they just don't quite push the right button, ask the right question, give them the opportunity. Do you know what I mean? And so they are just sustaining pipelines, which I think is, I don't know. I had a presentation once. I used to close it with the most powerful close in the world. Do you know what the most powerful close in the world is? It works 100% of the time. It is powerful. I'm trusting you with something powerful here.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think so.
I do this shit
Let
with
me
the
get my pen
audience
ready.
when
Let
I'm
me get my
doing
pen
this.
ready.
Right, write this down. The most powerful close in the world is no.
Is no.
Is no. You start telling your prospects no. You start telling them no, it's not going to be available to you, or no, I don't fancy doing it for you anymore, or no, you're not doing the things that need to happen to make this happen. One of two things happens. One thing always happens. It closes. One of two things happens. Either they go, you know what, Martin, I'm not fancying it. I didn't want to do it. So, thank you very much for your time. Or the other thing goes, well, you know what, mine, I do need to get this done. I do need to get these things done. And so if you can bear with me, I'll make sure these things happen. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
People are dragging these stupid pipelines around with them their entire careers. It's a nonsense. It's like if I'm training salespeople, I tell them, sync your pipeline. Find who wants to live with that stress of that mystery of which one of these could possibly happen if any of them ever do. So that for me is about putting yourself in the game. It's like not giving people the opportunity to say no, telling them no. And people really don't like it. It's a little bit like you saying you're probably not in the market right now. They're like, well, why aren't I in the market? I can be in the market if I want to be in the market.
Yeah. Well, we might be soon. Let me have a look at it. Well, I don't know if you're really ready for it. Well, cool. So there's a bit of a as you snatch it away, they kind of want it more.
Yes.
But sometimes, like you say, it's moving to a point of making the point of are you interested or not? Because I don't know if this is a really good fit for you or if this would actually work. And then they can kind of go, yeah. And if they're not sure, like you say, you can kind of wrap it up and no, it's not for them and they're going to move on. But a lot of people go, well, hang on a second. I understand your concerns about this. And actually, this is something that I know I need to do. So that little bit of I don't really know if it's going to work. Basically, I need you to care enough to say you want it for me to work with you.
Yes.
And that's why often with prospecting, although you are trying to find somebody who fits that avatar or that profile of what it is you think is your ideal client, you then want to qualify them, right?
100%.
That's the whole thing of prospecting is not just finding any opportunity, it's qualifying opportunities.
Yes.
Because you might speak to somebody who's a lovely person to talk to and is really interested in what you do, but they have no access to money or funds to be able to do it.
100%.
In which case so it's
we're on the same page. The issue with not closing either way, in or out, and that's what it is for me. It's like a close is a close, and a close is the best thing, because you know what happens then is I don't waste any more time on somebody who doesn't have the authority or the need or the budget or the whatever or the urgency just to get it done. I'd rather not waste my time on those. I'd rather go to the ones who are. On the other side of the coin, the buyers are playing the same game. Do you know what I mean? They're going to their bosses and they're like, did you fix this issue? And you're like, yeah, I sent an email. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's completely nullifying each other, but just staying in a job. Do you know what I mean? They're staying in a job, you're staying in a job, but nobody's really happy with the situation.
Turning up and clocking in.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I sent an email. And the bosses are also playing the game because then they go, oh, okay, good work.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to get to this idea of strategy, because I've got an idea of what a strategy is. And I think your idea of what a strategy is might be similar to mine, but I'm interested to know how you think about why you call it conversation strategy or conversational strategy.
Yeah. I just think that there's like I say, some fundamental manners that will certainly help. And then there's just some basic human behavior that we're all aware of and that we all do, that you just have to respect. And when you break that down for people, that's how I get salespeople to slow down and stop trying to go for the jugular and trying to close somebody within the first 3 minutes of having a chat with them. There's 3 phases of the conversation you've got to be aware of, and I kind of briefly mentioned them earlier on. But at the beginning, you need to get them to like you.
Yes.
If they don't like you, if they instantly decide that they don't like you and you're not that sort of person, they're going to be rude to you or combative or evasive, which none of which are going to be helpful or conducive to a useful conversation. And in my mind, there's 2 things you can do to build rapport. Use good manners. So I would get permission to speak from you at the very beginning of the call. and flattery, which is research. Everybody's
Yes.
favorite topic is themselves. If I want to keep you talking, the more I know about you and your interest in photography and surfing and that kind of stuff will give me great ammunition to get you talking about something I know you're really interested in and passionate about, which will help break the ice. And as soon as you start talking to me about something you enjoy, you're going to talk to me like I'm a friend. Your guards are going to come down, and it's going to make me much easier for me to then direct the conversation to the next stage. And the rapport bit might take us 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I might just use mainly manners and not a huge amount of research, but I might spend 5 minutes telling you all the stuff I found out about you and the pictures that I've seen that you posted that I really like and all that kind of stuff. But basically, I want you to like me enough to want to keep listening, right? And although telling you lots of stuff about yourself will make your head inflate and think I've really done my research and you're not just a name and a number on a list, I also can't overdo it, because if I make too much small talk and we're 10 minutes in, you'll be thinking, all right, guy, you're friendly, mate, but what's the point? Get to the point.
Yes.
Right? So you kind of got to get that balance. Once you get them to like you enough to be listening, you just have to get them to respect you. And the way you do that, I always say the best way to perfect your pitch, and this doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a lawyer or a landscaper, it works exactly the same. You share success stories people can relate to. So basically, share case studies. Let your clients speak for you. And sometimes you'll match their industry to say, look, I understand your industry. Look at what people in your industry say about us. And sometimes it's actually a different industry, but the same problem that you've solved. I understand you're having this particular issue. Look at how we solved it for these guys. Read what they say about us. Let's have a proper chat when you're ready. Okay. So you basically build this credibility library, which gives you all the ammunition you need to go and drop off your pizza menu. Okay. And that's how you build trust, by letting your clients speak for you. And then the final part of the conversation is creating urgency. And I mentioned it earlier on. This is where you say, well, look, now you know that we're trustworthy. When you're ready, I'd love to offer you a free test drive. And let's figure out what kind of test drive you would find most useful. So in certain instances, you ask the client, here are 3 things that I could do for you that you might find useful or valuable, and we'll give you a flavor or a taste of what it is I'm like to work with. So it could be, I might send you, if you, as a podcast host, I might send you a free copy of my book and say, hey, I'd love to send you a free copy of my book. Let me know what chapters most interest you and what we could talk about if I was to come on your show. Yeah. I might have a show reel and say, actually, Martin, lovely chatting with you. I know you're not going to be looking at guests for a while, but can I send you a show reel or some footage of me doing a keynote so you can understand my content and see if that would fit with the kind of marketing topics you talk about?
Yes.
Yeah. We might do a discovery meeting. You might subscribe to my newsletter or my tip sheet or something. There could be a variety of different things that you might find useful that I could give you to show my generosity, show you how good my advice is. And hopefully, if you think my advice is good, if you're sat on the fence thinking, I think I might like this, but I'm not 100% sure yet. If I can tip you onto the I'm sure because I've tried this out and this worked for me, I'd rather be generous and give you something useful early on, which helps win you over. And in certain instances, may even help create a budget to invest in what it is I want you to buy from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah, they're the 3 stages, basically. Get them to like you enough to keep listening. Use a credibility library so that they respect you or they understand why you're good at what you do. And then have a selection of potential test drives that are a really easy next step that they could take that would allow them to experience kind of what you like to work with and what the future might look like if they did engage you.
100%. Cool.
Easy, right? But so going back to what we were saying earlier on, is quite often on a first call, you can only really do the first 2 steps. If 4 out of 5 people that you get, when you get through to the actual decision maker, if you go and say, look, I'm assuming you're not looking for what I do right now, but I'm hoping potentially you might do in the future. And they go, well, actually, yeah, we're not at the moment, but it might be something we'd look at next year. I'd go, well, look, just so that you remember me, I'd love to share what people who do what you do say about me that I've worked with recently. And that will hopefully make you confident that when you are ready to talk about this, you know I'm the right person to call.
100%.
Yeah? And because the timing isn't right, 4 out of 5 people will go, yeah, send me the case study and it will go on file and hopefully they'll remember you. But usually they'll give you, because you've led with the fact that I'm assuming you're not looking to do this right now, most people not only will confirm it's correct, they'll then justify it, and they'll start to give you an indication of when they will be hungry for your services.
Yes.
So they'll usually say, you're right, we're not looking at training at the moment because we've got a program that runs till the end of the year. And I'll go, oh, fantastic. In which case, will you be evaluating that in January, or will you do that more towards the end of the year so that you can plan for the following year? And they'll go, oh, yeah, it'll probably be November, December time. We'll start to look at whether we've hit our KPIs and blah, 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 blah. And I'll go, oh, fantastic. Is it okay if I speak to you then and see if you've hit your goals? Because if you have, I'll send you a little celebratory box of chocolates.
Yeah.
But if there are other KPIs that perhaps you haven't hit or you think that I might be able to help with, I'd love to talk to you about how I could support you next year to get to those milestones. Yes. And I could then tee up the briefing call that we will have in a few months' time. But 1 out of 5, you get lucky when you work really hard and you phone lots of people, because 1 out of 5 will turn around and go, well, actually, we do have a program running at the moment, but it's not quite giving me the results I was hoping for.
So that was my favourite always, was when people would be like, oh, I can't believe you phoned me today. It's like, well, neither can the other 150 people I dialed, but didn't answer the phone. They couldn't believe it either. Do you know what I mean? That's my favourite. You see, I think of strategy as a journey. So strategy is about working out where people are now and taking them on the journey to where you want them to be. So I've got also 3 kind of stages, but I call mine rapport, qualification, and closing. Okay. But it's essentially the same things. It's essentially the same things. It's just moving them in the direction of they could be benefiting from this thing that you're offering. And I don't know. My targeting's not so great. I don't know that everyone I dial or everyone who picks up the phone can benefit from this. So we're just going to do this little dance where I'm going to see if I can make you laugh. And if you laugh, then we got rapport. And then I'm going to start kind of being a bit nosy. And then if you can answer how you're doing without being rude, then, for me, that's qualification. We could probably be friends. If you can't answer the question, how are you, without being rude, then we probably can't. But, there's nothing unpleasant in this, apart from when people are doing it in the world. It's all really unpleasant.
I just think we've all had, I think, a bad experience of somebody phoning us at a really bad time with a bad attitude towards the fact we don't have time to speak to them.
Yes.
So you get that person who kind of go, look, now's not good. I'm not really interested, mate. And they go, how do you know you're not interested? I haven't even told you about the product yet. You kind of go, oh, okay, so you think arguing with me is a good way to start a relationship. Good luck.
And how many people do think that, though? We've all seen that. If you've been in a sales department for a minute, you've seen somebody doing that. The worst is when they're fighting with the receptionist or the secretary or the colleague. Because, what people don't seem to realise is there's typically there might be a little committee of people who can say yes to something in a business. Everyone in that business can say no. So immediately you turn up for that meeting, they're going to go, oh, that's that dickhead who was on the phone. And they're going to go in to see the boss and say, that dickhead I told you about, he's been harassing me on the phone. Well, he's in reception. You're cooked. Do you know what I mean? You're done.
But that's sometimes because salespeople are desperate. They're behind target. Their manager is old-fashioned and said, read this script to 100 people and one will say yes.
Yes. It's all of that. And it just feels to me like this is my mission in life. It feels to me like everything everyone knows about sales and marketing is 100%, 180 degrees in the wrong direction. And you just have to flip it around completely and it all suddenly works. Because what we're talking about, what I learned on the phone, I've applied for a career. Do you know what I mean? Like a career. Like how to get into conversations, how to motivate people, how to find people, how to network, how to learn about a market, how to identify who my best prospects are going to be, what buttons I need to put, all of that. I learned that on the phone in 2 or 3 years. And I think it's amazing.
The great thing about that is that as you learn that stuff, you start to learn how to help your customers to buy.
Yes.
And once you change the mindset of your job is not to sell, is to help people to buy, which means you need to get in the conversations with the right people at the right time.
Yeah, in the right way.
in the right way in order to be able to have a question to help them. And it's interesting, we talked about like what the definition of salespeople, and my first mentor, a guy called Phil M. Jones, says that a great salesperson is just a professional mind maker upperer.
100%. Love that.
Which I love. And I got asked the other day, people often use the phrase about they want to be a trusted advisor to their client. This trusted advisor thing. And somebody sort of said, well, how do you become a trusted advisor? And I said, well, typically it's by answering the first two questions that everybody asks, which is how much is it and how quickly can I have it? Because time and money are the things we care about most. And once you've answered those two questions, what you then do is you tell them the three questions that they should be asking if they are going to buy this product or service. Because once you just say, if I was you and buying this, even if you don't buy it from us, those two questions are relevant, but you need to also know, does it do this? Will it fit with that? Can I do X? Okay. Because if the answer to those questions doesn't match, it's not going to give you what you want. And therefore it doesn't matter if the price is right or you can have it straight away. It's not a good fit for you. So once you start to teach people the right questions to ask, they then start to look at you as somebody who obviously knows more about buying this product or service than they do. And therefore you become that trusted advisor where they come back to you and go, okay, well, we're thinking this. What do you think?
Yes.
Okay. And you then get to start to share and you basically then earn the right to make a recommendation. So that's another thing that I got from Phil Jones, is he says, your job is to be a professional mind maker upperer. Okay. And in helping them figure out the right questions to ask, you may earn the right to make a recommendation as to what they should do. And if they like you and they trust you, then they may follow your recommendation, which is usually to buy the product or solution that you are offering.
100%. So, that is genius. I love that, because that's what it is. This is also part of my definition of sales, is motivating people to do something ever so slightly different. So they might buy from you as opposed to buying from someone else. So they might buy a different, that's all you're doing. Because if you're motivating people to do something fantastically different, the odds on it working are kind of slim. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and then they'll come back to you and they'll be like, well, you pressured me. They're blaming you. Do you know what I mean? That's what's going on. Do you want the good news?
Well, I was going to say, I find that at the end of training, I ask people what their gems are. And I'd rather that they have 2 or 3 really good gems, things that they're going to go away and try, than them go, oh my God, I've got like 40 different things written down. You think, well, okay, that's just going to overwhelm you.
Yes, it's going to be too much. You're not going to be able to do that. Okay, good. Do you want the good news?
Far away.
I am perfectly satisfied that you are qualified to talk to us about conversational strategy. You've passed the first hurdle. We've completed the first question.
I've survived.
It's always a relief when we get here, isn't it?
It is. I'll be honest with you. I've been getting worried.
I'm really not looking forward to the day where I have to tell someone, look, you're clearly an idiot. You don't know what we're talking about. I'm going to draw a line under the question. Okay, good. All right. So question number 2, you've kind of given us plenty of sense. We've got 21 minutes remaining.
Okay.
But question number 2, who do you work with? How do you add value to their lives?
So from the companies I work with, it's a real mixture, which isn't that helpful, but I'll give you some examples. Financial services. Recently, I've worked with a British bank, financial, more sort of investment, IFA type of businesses, accountants, foreign currency. And typically with those guys, they are very knowledgeable. Their product or their services and products are sometimes quite complex. All I really do with those is help them to manage the flow of the conversation.
Yes.
Helping them to potentially break the ice with people at the beginning if it's a new relationship, how to do a pre-frame at the beginning of a call so that you can recap on everything that's happened so far so everybody's up to speed, that you check they have enough time in the diary. So obviously if you do book a Zoom or a meeting with somebody online, at the very beginning, you should always be saying, look, thanks ever so much for jumping online. I did block out a full hour. Are you okay for that? Or how long have you got? Because if you blocked out 30 minutes and I blocked out an hour, I might be doing far too much small talk than I needed to be if to get everything done in the time that we needed.
Yeah.
I help people build their confidence by building these credibility libraries. So quite often, if you do have products, this can be really useful to get that real sense of pride around the product when you start showing testimonials. So printing companies, packaging companies, courier services. There's a variety of different companies that I've worked with, lots of associations as well, membership associations. I'm just trying to think of some others. Medical, there's a few I've worked with in that space. So medical devices as well as the pharmaceutical side, which is very complex because there's certain things you can and can't say when it comes to pharmacy products and who you can talk to. So that becomes a whole new interesting ball game. But I've worked with construction companies as well. It massively varies, but quite often, really what I try and give people is the confidence to guide the conversation to an outcome that the person they're talking to is happy with, but hopefully also achieves their goal as well. Okay. And that is sometimes in retaining clients. People hear the telephone assassin and think, oh, it's all cold calling. Well, it's probably about 10 or 15% of what I do. A lot of it's actually dealing with account managers who need to upserve their existing customers, make sure that they renew their contract at the end of the year, that we squeeze every project out of them that we can, that we're getting referrals out of them, that we're getting testimonials out of those clients too. But I just try and help people to think about a conversation before they have it, so that they're prepared for the bad things that might happen or the worst case scenario, and that they could move the conversation on in a positive way.
Yes.
And in sales, the most common thing that hits us is bad timing. So you kind of learn and you get a bit of a thick skin that when you cold call somebody, the likelihood of them needing what you want right now and thinking about it right now is really, really slim. But if you make a good impression and then you send them a little case study, within 3 or 4 months, they're not cold anymore. As you mentioned before, when you then do the follow-up, they then start to like the sound of your voice, and it makes a really big difference. So I'll be honest with you, I have to pinch myself that I've got a job that basically just teaches people how to be nice in a conversation.
Yes.
It's ridiculous, but I also blame all of the technology platforms that we now have that give us other methods of communication. And as you mentioned earlier on, if it's a chat bot or it's more of a text, you tend to do a bit of shorthand. You tend to lose some of the etiquette and the manners that people appreciate, and that makes people realize that you are a gentleman.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so
that
I
don't actually feel like I answered your question there, but there's quite a few industries that I kind of work with, and I suppose confidence to deliver bad news or get people to take action is really what I help people to do.
Yes. Okay. No, I think you answered the question. Well, I think you've been answering that question really since we stopped talking about your cat.
Yeah.
What's the thing? The thing is, that's what people need, is the confidence. You know what? That's all people need. I think mostly what they need a steer on a few things. Like guiding conversations is like just a sense that, you know what, you're phoning people, they don't even know you exist, and you want to get them to the point where they trust you enough to buy something from you. You know, that's the journey, and how you go on that journey, guiding those conversations. But I think 100% the main thing that salespeople need is the confidence to actually put themselves in the game. Do you know what I mean? To actually be telling people, this is what I'm doing. I think it'll be really valuable for you. I don't know if it will or not. I don't even know how you feel about these things, but let's have a chat. Do you know what I mean? And immediately you work out you don't need it. Just let me know. I'll go bother someone else. You know, it's like, you could say that. It's like the way I would extricate myself from calls quite often is like people lie. They're like, like with receptionists, like when we were cold calling. I mean, this is something I want to ask you. But when we were cold calling, people would lie. And they would say, like, and when I did my telemarketing training, I would say to people this, like, gatekeepers are the most powerful people on the planet. They've only got 3 questions, but they decide whether you live or die. Do you know what I mean? With those 3 questions, I can't remember what the 3 questions were, but one of them invariably, like, if you get to this is the 3rd question: is this a cold call? You're dead, because like you're dead. So what was the point of that? People will lie. Are you trying to sell something? No. like
Yeah.
that's a lie. You know what I mean? So when you go
Yeah.
through, and he comes out and he says to the secretary, "I told you I didn't want any sales calls today," and she's like, "Well, he told me he wasn't going to sell something." Do you know what I mean? I said, "Okay, you're a liar. You've been busted as a liar." Do people trust people? Do you know what I mean? So it's as simple as that. So I used to love it. Like secretaries would say, "Oh, the second question is, our first question is, does he know you? Second question is, are they expecting your call? Third question is this a cold call or is this a sales call? So does he know me? Nope, I've never spoken to him before in my life. That's true. Is he expecting your call? Nope, it's going to come as a complete surprise. She's laughing. I'm going through. I don't even get, she doesn't even get to ask me if it's a sales call. Do you know what I mean? It really is as simple as that. I think
it's so honest, it's disarming.
Disarming and funny. And it's like, and she know, or they know that I'm not going to upset the person because I'm a funny, kind of disarming, kind of unassuming, kind of a, do you know what I mean? I'm not a threat to anyone. Whereas someone who phones up and says, you need to put me through to your boss, or you're not putting me through, right? I need to make a complaint. I need to speak to your manager. It's like, oh, you stupid.
Yeah.
What was the point about that? So, yes. So this comes to the next question that I have, which is the one you suggested earlier. Surely in 2022, I mean, you've just listed all of the industries that actually rely on telesales, telemarketing, working the phone. But surely in 2022, with the voicemails and the mobile phones and the attitudes and the not call lists, what's that called? Like call barring, and then the TPS, is it still called the telephone preference service? Is that still existing? Surely, given that this was issues for us when I stopped working on the phone in the UK in 1999, all these things were given us issues already. Surely in the 23 years since then, it must have died. Cold calling, telemarketing.
So cold calling in the traditional sense of what it used to be, which was phoning somebody you didn't know to try and sell them something they probably don't want. So I say cold calling is dead in the fact that you no longer have an excuse to phone somebody up and not know some stuff about them.
Okay.
Because we live in a digital world where you can check people's websites, you can see what it is they actually do, and most salespeople, although we're not the sharpest tools in the box, we're smart enough to know the more information we have before we start to try and attack, the easier it is to adapt what we're going to do and say based on some of that information.
Yes.
So I personally don't think everybody should phone you up and be trying to sell you something and then be asking you about your business. I get really annoyed.
I do.
They kind of go, oh, hi there. I see you're the director of the Telephone Assassin Ltd. I want to talk to you about this new CRM system. And I was like, oh, okay. And why do you think I need a new CRM system? Right. Oh, well, this is perfect for coaches. I go, yeah, but I don't really do much coaching. Most of my stuff is training and speaking. If you'd bothered to look at my website and you saw my feed, you'd probably have figured that out, and you could have changed your tack slightly. Yeah.
God help anyone who cold calls us. Hey, they are in trouble.
I'm easy to sell to. All you have to do is be polite and listen to me. If you listen to me, I'll give you all the clues of what it is I need and want.
Yes.
And if you show that you pay attention, and if you've got a sense of humor and can make me laugh along the way, then I'll enjoy the process. And if I need something, you may be able to help me to buy it. And you may be able to educate me into learning something I didn't know was out there that I didn't realize I'd need. But you also have to respect my time. And that's the bit that I think most people struggle with. So, you talked about like those, I mentioned sort of getting permission to speak at the beginning of calls. So some people might go, are you free to chat, or are you okay to talk? Or some people just blurt a script, right? I'm assuming you've received a cold call where somebody's blurted a pitch down the phone at you.
Yeah. It's worse than that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's what I joke about it. I call it premature elaboration. It's an overexcited salesperson blurting a pitch over anybody who answers the phone, and it just sets off alarm bells that say it's a sales call. So the way I get permission to speak when I phone somebody up is to basically combat the biggest issue that you have, which is they haven't got time or don't want to talk about it. Is I would, if I was phoning you for the very first time, I'd go, oh, hi, Martin. My name's Anthony Stears. I was just hoping to chat to you for a couple of minutes, but I understand you're quite busy and now's probably not a good time. Is there a better time to call you back? right? And because I'm making it so easy for you to get out of this conversation, most people will come to one of two conclusions, which is I can't possibly be in sales, because nobody in sales would make it that easy to get out of this. Or if you are in sales, you're rubbish at it and not to be feared.
Okay.
So it's actually a really disarming thing. And what most people do is they kind of go, hang on a second, I don't think this person's in sales. They only really want 2 minutes, and they're right. I am a busy guy, but there's never really a good time to speak to me. But go on, you seem polite. I'll give you 2 minutes now, because that's all you've asked for, right?
Yes.
And actually, by giving them a really easy out, which probably goes against everything you would have heard from sales trainers about at the beginning of a phone call, the last thing you want to do is let them get out easily, right? That's what most salespeople think. Once you get them on the phone, the desperation is to, well, don't let them off the phone.
Yes.
And my view on using telemarketing is sales will always be a numbers game, but it is not about convincing people to buy and overcoming objections. It's about capitalizing on the conversations people are ready to have. If they're not ready to have a conversation, then you're not going to be able to get them to open up and talk about it. And you're not going to be able to steer that conversation. They're not ready to chat. You're better off finding out now rather than barking up the wrong tree and upsetting somebody or wasting a lead or being persistent with somebody who's just had their whole computer system crash. They've got more important things they need to fix right now rather than talking to you about your product. Yeah. So sometimes you need to give people that opportunity, and on an unlucky day, when you do that, my version of the permission to speak, maybe 2 out of 3 will say, actually, Anthony, you're right. Now isn't a good time, but could you give me a call on Friday? Would you mind giving me a call at 11 o'clock tomorrow? And I'll do the same thing again, because I don't care if you put me off 4 times and make me wait a month, as long as in a month's time, when you do give me permission to speak, you'll probably be like, oh, thanks for bearing with me, Anthony. I know you've been trying me a couple of times and we had that issue before, but go on, you've got my undivided attention. What did you want to talk about?
Yes.
Right? You're then ready to engage. And if you're ready to engage, I can help steer the conversation and help you understand what it is I do. Whereas if you're not in the mindset of wanting to find out about this, I'm barking up the wrong tree and I'm wasting your time and mine. And I'm a bit lazy as a salesperson. I don't really do database marketing. I want to do wish list marketing.
Yes.
I want dream clients that are worth my time and attention, that if I only get 1 or 2 of them makes a big quarter, rather than going after anybody and everybody.
100%. That's what I think. And the thing is, this is what I tell people about marketing. You do marketing so you can pick and choose who your customers are. If you're not doing marketing, you have to take any rubbish that turns up on your door. Do you know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
yeah, that's why you do marketing. Do you know?
And if your marketing's good, you don't have to do outbound telemarketing stuff, because you have enough inquiries that you get to qualify and disqualify, and you deal with the people who've walked into your shop rather than walking the street with a banner trying to find people who haven't found your shop yet.
Yes,
right?
100%. So you're saying that basically the hardcore, what people would imagine was cold calling, that's kind of moved away, and now you have to be investing more in the relationship early rather than, yes.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Super cool. Question number 3. We've still got 3 questions to go. Can you believe it?
Oh my God, we've got not much time.
Got 6 minutes. We might overrun by a couple of minutes. Are we cool?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short and sweet. Apologies, my friend.
Can I have your undivided attention?
I'm focused.
Okay, so this one needs to be succinct. You've probably answered this question again already, but we want to chop this and put it on TikTok. So, what is your recommendation for people who want to get better at having strategic conversations?
Do some planning before you pick up the phone. Okay, think about what it is you're going to do in that conversation and take it one step at a time. If you want to improve your results for prospecting, concentrate on getting people to like and trust you rather than trying to get people to take action. People will take action once they trust you, and that's why you need to use your credibility library in order to win people over and earn their trust to take a test drive, which gives you a chance to show off and win them over through delivering some value for them.
That's a great recommendation.
I don't know how well that'll work. I don't know how well that'll work on TikTok, but yeah, that's.
We haven't done it yet. We'll see. Everyone and their dogs on TikTok. That's why we've got to start getting there. Good. Okay, cool. So, question number 4. Then we are rattling off the questions now. What should people read?
Oh, I mentioned him earlier on as a guy called Phil M. Jones. He's got a book called Magic Words, and it's simple words that make a massive difference in a conversation. That's certainly worth reading. They're just such simple things that will give you a confidence in guiding a conversation forwards. So yeah, Magic Words by Phil Jones is an awesome one. Plus, LinkedIn Bound by Sam Rathling on my desk. There we go. In fact, you've had Sam on, right?
Yeah, just last week I spoke to Sam, and she's up already.
If you can improve your index with LinkedIn using her book, it's brilliant. Absolutely filled with gems.
Okay. Do you know anyone who's written anything about kind of guiding telesales, customer service type conversations, anything like that?
If I'm honest with you, I suppose shamefully stick away from those.
I'm talking about you.
About me? Oh, obviously, yeah. Here we go. Here's the book. It's written a few years ago, but it's got all of the core principles about what it is I do, how the structure kind of works, and it's more of a reference guide. So if people do get a chance, you can buy it on Amazon, depending on where you are in the world. And if you appreciate excellent packaging and branding, you can buy it on my website if you wish, but it's slightly more expensive.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. Excellent. That will also go. I'm going to start marketing this as the International League of Marvelous Marketeers. What do you think?
Love it. To be considered as part of that, under that umbrella, mate. I think that's an awesome title and a privilege to be part of.
You are part of it. I'm in your life now. I'll be stalking you, liking your stuff and sharing it on LinkedIn and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to be coming to visit you at some point soon as well. So
that'd be really good to see you, man. Okay, cool. Right. So I just need to check in and see how you feel about this experience. How are you feeling about this experience?
I've really enjoyed it. I have to be honest with you. It's probably the most flowing, natural conversation I think I've had done as a podcast before. So that was quite nice. I like the way certain responses triggered certain reactions out of you as well. But yeah, mate, I've really enjoyed it. It's actually not felt like work, which is always nice.
Fantastic. Excellent. But if two conversation strategists like you and I are chatting, it's going to be an amazing conversation. It's got to be.
Absolutely. I'm quite looking forward to watching it back.
Okay, cool. Excellent. All right, then. So the reason I asked that question is to see how easy it's going to be for you to throw a couple of people under the bus.
Absolutely.
Who do you think might enjoy or at least endure to have a strategic conversation like this with me?
Yeah. Well, seeing as I mentioned him a couple of times, I think Phil Jones, I will certainly connect you with. I think he would go down really well. But there's a guy called Simon Hazeldine, who I've known for many years through the Professional Speaking Association. He talks about neuro selling, so some of the neuroscience behind negotiation. He's written about a dozen books. Bare Knuckle Negotiations was one of them that I particularly remember. But he talks a little bit more around the psychology of sales and selling, and I quote him all the time. So if we can get Simon on, he'd be a brilliant guest, and I think you would get on with him rather well too.
Fantastic. Excellent. Super cool. You're a legend. And is it Phil M. Jones who said good salespeople are mind maker-uppers?
Yeah, he talks about them being mind maker-uppers, and he says the best salespeople earn a right to make a recommendation.
Cool. So I won't make that the title then of this conversation, because I wrote down when you said that out of interest. Yep. You said that on 20:06 my time, 36 minutes into the conversation. But I won't make that the headline of this one. I'll find something else that's interesting that you said.
Okay.
Man, you're an absolute legend. I also have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, I felt like I waffled off on a few bits, so apologies if I did. But yeah, mate, I wish we could do these all the time.
Well, we could. I'm doing this all the time. I'm doing this all the time. But you're welcome back. I mean, we did say in the conversation that we had before that we might talk more about customer retention and customer service rather than sales, but it went to sales. But if you've got as much to say about that, we could do that in the future. Should I put that there or should I put that there? We could do that in the future.
I would love to. And if I'm honest with you, I kind of forgotten about that was more where we were supposed to be going with this. So, but hopefully that's worked out well then. That's me weaseling my way back in to do a part 2 at some point.
Yes. And if you just fancy doing something occasionally, if you've got time on your hands, I do like reaction stuff. I've got a bit of an issue with Gary Vaynerchuk. I really don't like him. So like we react to the very best and the very worst of stuff on the internet. So if you do fancy being more involved, you could do one of those sometime. That would be cool. Maybe we'll find somebody maybe we'll find a complete idiot talking about sales and we will just both sit here and rag on him. We could do that.
That sounds like great fun.
It does sound like fun, doesn't it?
But the reaction stuff, I'm happy to do stuff that would kind of help, and particularly if it's just easy video type bits that we can look up in between stuff. I might need to see some examples of the sorts of things you mean, but we'll be chatting more. It's interesting since we spoke. I'd obviously filled my wife in, and obviously we've been to Bali and stuff like that. And she's like, we really need to go. And even to the point where when we were talking about shifting my business model, looking more at using speaking, but coaching rather than training, because I can do that from anywhere. And I was using you as the example of, well, if you've got a decent enough internet connection and you can keep your marketing going, you can be working and busy from anywhere, right?
You really can. Yeah, 100%. It would be lovely to see you here, man. Okay, cool. Right, so we got to the end. So what we'll do now is we'll say goodbye for the purposes of anyone who's still listening. So, fantastic. Man, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. And then what we'll do is I'll stop recording. We'll say goodbye like normal human beings.
Perfect.
Brother, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm trying to find bad people and I can't find them anywhere. I can't find them anywhere. But this has been a brilliant conversation. It's really good to know that you are out there doing this, I think, really useful and important work.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love what I do, which obviously you've probably worked out. We are so similar in the views, and it's interesting when you sit sales and marketing next to each other, how much they should fit, and ironically, usually butt heads in most businesses. But yeah, I've loved chatting with you. If I can think of anybody terrible that we can rag on, as you put it, I will certainly be sending you those names as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure. And for anyone listening, keep tuning in. I've listened to a few of yours now, my friend. And you make me laugh, plus teaching me stuff as we go. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you.